Welcome to the Cricket8 Podcast. Jarrod Kimber here, Rob Barron there. We're going to be talking about, I suppose we're going to be talking about T20s, but partly it's really to talk about how good Abhishek Sharma is and how bad England is. But I figured, Rob, you would prefer to start with Abhishek Sharma than shitting on England because to be honest, I don't even need to mention England. You'll just on your own transfer over and start slagging them off. So, where are we at?
I mean, Abhishek is awesome, and the thing is, if you let Abhishek face balls, he's going to murder you. And so most teams manage to get him out after about 10 to 15 balls. That seems to be his spot of getting out.
He feels like a 14-ball man to me.
Yeah, he really does. And he had an unbelievable season in the IPL, just gone nearly a year ago. And he never faced more than 30 balls, I don't think, across the whole season. And he was awesome. So he showed yesterday, was that yesterday? Yesterday, what he can do if he faces balls. And he even allowed for a little lull for something like 7 overs. He was 14 off 15 and he hardly faced, he faced 15 balls in 7 overs because England was starving him with a strike. He looked like he got a bit tired and then he went again. So for a guy that scored 135 off 54 whilst having half an hour off is pretty remarkable. Like, that guy can gun it. So this brings me to a broader point on T20 that I touched on with Mega last week, is that teams that think 60 for none is a great power play are going to be left in the dust on roads because you need a guy now. So we saw it. We've been crying out for it ever since T20 started. Stop pissing about at the start. Use the power play and start smoking it. And when we got the 2 teams in the final of the IPL this time were Salt and Narain versus Travis Head and Abhishek. That's what I want to watch. I want to watch people trying to smash every ball. And when you see the Mitch Owen genius of the Big Bash that's just happened, you want someone at the start, and England have actually, with all the chat of England gunning it all the time and all England do is smash it and hope for the best, they're not actually smashing it as hard as everyone else now. And I said that quietly because no one seems to notice this. Scoring at 150 is no longer good enough in the power play if you're playing on a road. 150 does not get it done. 9 and over isn't good enough. You need to go at 200, and Abhishek can do that. Mitch Owen can do that. Travis Head can do that. Abhishek has the best 10 balls, a first 10 ball strike rate of the last year and a bit since 2024. And he's going at about 195 for his first 10 balls. That is such a skill. No longer are you 5 for none off the first over. Stop mucking about. Try and get 15 off it. And Sanju didn't do anything in this series, but he did hit the first ball for 6 yesterday. And they never looked back. They just carried on trying to hit 60s. Yeah, they stumbled a bit in the middle. Cass, again, had inexplicable figures throughout them through those middle overs. And despite having their best player not playing in Bumrah and having Sanju and Sky not scoring a run for the whole series, they still smashed England. But Abhishek, just watch that innings again. I mean, unfortunately, Peterson was on the bloody comms yesterday and he was talking about it as if it was literally the best innings that had ever happened in any format over and over again. It's like, okay, bit of recency bias, Kevin. But the pure hitting and the ability that not many people that I've seen have to be able to walk or move quite quickly down the pitch at a bowler whilst keeping the head completely still. Like when you're running at a fast bowler and smacking him over long on for 6, it must be quite hard to keep your head still, right? And you'll keep the proper shape. Watch the hitting again. But this is a guy. So Mitch Owen, I get it. He's young and he's probably been smoking it his whole life. Abhishek, we've seen in the IPL for 5 or 6 years before he suddenly started hooning everything. So his technique was always there. But to watch it, I mean, that's the one, isn't it? That's the one where Abhishek has finally lasted more than a power play. And oh my God, like, what can he do? When England were just scratching their heads and looking at each other going, now what do we do? No answers at all.
He's only faced more than 30 balls, I think, about 12 times in his T20 career. Like, it really is. It's remarkable how much impact he has had without actually staying in for that many balls. I think that was the most balls. Yeah, that was the most balls he's ever faced in a T20 game. Just on the Kevin Peterson thing of saying it was the best innings ever. Do you remember when Shane Warne during the IPL at one stage said that someone played the best innings ever, and I'm really interested if you remember who it was.
Oh God. No, my brain wants to say Tawatia out loud, but just because he played with him or
Yusuf
found
Pathan.
him. Well, to be fair, Yusuf Pathan was one of the scariest hitters. Like
Yeah,
when he
but
was in
I
his
just-
cage.
It does show you though how much like it's funny. I've been arguing about this. My son has got a book of like the 501 book movies you must read. We got it from a charity shop. Must see, I should say. And in it is like Young Guns and Troy. And like it's such recency, but like imagine putting Young Guns in your 500 movies to watch list now, and Troy. Oh my God, like that's an abomination, right? But the point being is that there was obviously a reason and recency, and you see that the Abhishek Sharma innings. I'm not taking away anything, but it'd be interesting to see how long this innings sticks around. But I think what you said before, the technique thing is really interesting for me. His ability to stay with his head still in the correct position and play, even when he's playing an attacking shot, they're not slogs. We will get on to England in a minute, but my God, that chase by England was one of the most despicable chases I have ever seen in my life, because all they had to do, Rob, was trust that wicket and hit through the line to the areas of which India was bowling, because India had just shown them a roadmap of how to score on that wicket. And they went, nah, we're going to slog everything to mid-wicket because that's the way you score really quickly. It was so bad. And then you go back, and if you watch Abhishek's highlights, it is so... His shape is so good. It reminds me of sort of like maybe Syed Anwar, Zahir Abbas, Ganguly, Yuvraj Singh, in that he's keeping his shape and hitting big rather than, someone like Mitch Owen, who I really like. But Mitch Owen is more of a old school slogger at times, right?
So
and Phil
he's
Salt,
uncomplicated.
yeah, they're a
He's
bit more sloggy.
Sure. So Owen, and I loved his big bash. I thoroughly enjoyed it. He went from ball one every time. He hit a 6 in the first over 8 times out of 10. He's an absolute gun. But usually bad bowlers, usually no swing, usually good pitches, and he just muscles it. So he stood completely still, but used big long levers and massive muscles to absolutely smoke it everywhere. Whereas Abhishek, if you watch it, the technique, you're just like, wow, what a great shot. There was a couple that he hit straight yesterday that were absolutely delightful, like a couple of the fours even that he hit straight. But yeah, just going back to his IPL, I think it was 16 games, and I've just looked it up. He's had innings where he's hit 7 sixes, 6 sixes, 6 sixes, 6 sixes, striking at 380 in one of the games, and the most balls he faced in a spectacular season was 28. Never faced 30 balls. And what teams need to realise now is if you can have a guy that scores 30 off 13 more often than they don't, you're so far ahead of the game if you can get someone that does that more than 5 out of 10, and stop trying to score 54 for 0 or 1 in the power play. On some pitches, that's fine, but on the roads, India showed, what did they get yesterday? 93 or something off the 6. That's where we are
Underscored yesterday. I know it's ridiculous because they beat
should have got
England by an
300
innings,
from where they were.
but they underscored of what they should have gone on to do. But because of that, it meant England had to play their style of cricket, which obviously fell apart. We'll slag off England in a minute. Don't worry, plenty there. Right now, if you had a chance of picking a spinner for T20 cricket for the next year, right, just for the next 12 months, would you pick Rashid Khan, Varun Chakravarti, or Noor Ahmed?
I think I have to go Noor. I think I have to.
I think it might be Varun Chakravarti. I think he can bowl better on flat pitches.
Interesting. The thing about Chakravarti is he has done something that not many have done before him, and he kind of got found out and then went away and tried new stuff.
Yep.
Which is a great effort in your 30s, because a lot of people disappear.
Because he was a late developer in the first place. But it is interesting he played with Sunil Narayan, who's done that twice.
So, yeah, but Chak wasn't a lock to play for KKR in the last IPL and ended up getting 19 wickets, which is a great effort at not many economy. And we were talking, Mega and I were talking about this last week. And for him to develop slightly a different way of bowling, varying pace and all that, great. But Noor gets better every time he bowls, Jarrod. So how good is he going to be in 12 months?
Yeah, I think if I'm buying futures, obviously Noah is the one I buy, right? Like right at the moment out of those three, I think that's fine. But if you're looking at the moment, I just think watching Noah sometimes he did bowl some rank ones down the leg side. There were sometimes
True.
when I was like, just bowl on the stumps. They can't hit you. They don't understand what you're doing. Varun would never do that. He would instantly work out, oh, okay, there's no point bowling outside off stump to this guy because he's never going to hit me. I'm just going to bowl and hit the top of leg stump and I'm going to get him out. So I think he's on a different sort of level.
I think
there's a couple of others. People have put in Kuldeep and Zappa. We're not having a go at them, but no one is picking them over the three that we've picked.
Zampa's not the guy right now. But the thing is, between Noor and Chak, and you were asking who's going to play this year, so it's not massively relevant, but there's 10 years there. And so Noor, but in defence of Noor, yes, he's been playing on very spinny pitches of late. But Chak has been, but Chak has been bowling against England, and anyone can look good against England if you bowl in spin because
he looked good against South Africa as well, and that was when Heinrich could still hold a bat at times, right? Like, so I'm going on the last, well, probably year now. He just looks to me that the difference that he has is that at the moment, he, as a spinner, he can completely take the pitch out of the conversation because he's not trying to spin it that much, right? He's beating most people with extra bounce or subtle variations. It's almost like he's bowling really, really accurate slower balls. And he's also, I don't know if you've heard this, he's got this other thing he's doing, which I find fascinating, where he's pre-planning what his 24 deliveries are going to be beforehand and then bowling them. So he's not doing what most bowlers do, which is, oh, he's hit me on this ball, so now I'm going to try and do this. I did see him, I reckon, go away from that a little bit when he was bowling to Liam Livingstone, because he was bowling wrong-uns. And then when Livingstone came on, he started bowling leg spin. And that's just because if you spin the ball away from Liam Livingstone, it's like he's never seen it before at the moment. It's a whole new concept for him that a ball can spin away from him.
England are just dumb. I think that's the take home for me.
We'll get to England in a minute.
Can I talk a little bit more about Chakravarti? Just like he didn't actually play that much T20 before, in the last few years. Like I'm just looking before he was okay in the IPL 23, and then he played like 4 smack games and didn't do anything. Had a really good IPL, and since then, just listen to this, right? When Bangladesh came to India, he got 5 wickets in 3 games, very good. And then since then, in the 4 against South Africa and 5 against England, every game he's taken at least 2 wickets. That is stunning consistency across 9 games against 2 good cricket teams. If you can call England a good cricket team, to be a constant wicket threat as a spinner who is predominantly bowling in the middle overs. Here's another thing. So if you want to be good at T20s now, you've got to start whacking it at the top. We're also going to start seeing spin later and later and later. Yeah,
and earlier and earlier. It's gonna. Yeah, we're not going to have the old days where you have a part-time spinner anymore. What we're going to have now is that spin bowlers are going to... It's amazing to me how often I've seen India do it, and it's been in the SA20 where teams have just gone, there's no point but bowling a spinner in the power play, a quick in the power play if the ball's coming on well, right? Like, if they're going to hit it, let's make them run down and hit it or take a chance. And so I do think we're seeing this go in, and so... Traditionally, we only saw spinners bowl at the death when they spun it both ways or the wicket was ragging. I don't think that's going to happen anymore either.
I think teams have...
Liam Livingstone bowled the 6th over for England the other day. Did you notice that?
He bowled what, sorry?
He bowled the 6th over as a part-time spinner.
Yeah, so he did. But that was because England were dead and buried after 5 overs.
It was, but my point, I just don't think you were seeing that 3 or 4 years ago even. Especially not from England. You might have seen it, and you might have seen it from a frontline spinner. I just think we've changed so much the way we think about these things now. We had our first game with all spin bowled and of all places in South Africa. Which I think stuff. we made a bunch of money on that game, didn't we? If I remember correctly. And me and Jake have been doing very well at Pal. People just like, there's no way you can defend this. It's like you can defend anything at Pal if you've got 3 guys who've ever spun a ball before.
I think that's a thing that traders and markets can't handle is the extremes. So when you get the mega low numbers, Mirpur, when Australia went there and got massacred by Bangladesh, springs to mind. and when you get the other ones, the total roads where, like, the sixth over on Betfair, the strongest market in the whole wide world, the sixth over yesterday was due 13 when Livingston was bowling that over. No, it bloody wasn't, was it? Like, how many times are they going to get 13 off that over when they've got 82 off the first 5? 82 off the first 5.
Livingston would have needed 3 wickets to keep it to 13.
Right. And you think, well, what are you doing? Like, it's because models and stuff say, well, this over's normally due 10 if they're going well. The sixth is due 10 runs, and they're like, 13's loads more than 10. That's what an algorithm and a model tells you. But the human, your eyes, when you're betting, you're like, well, no, they're going to get absolutely loads here. And because they cannot stop them, and they couldn't stop them from scoring 6s, and 6 is a lot off one ball. And then you need 7 or 5 to get your 13 or whatever. Like, totally easy. But they can't cope with it. And then when you come out of the power play, all these models and algos and everything goes, well, after the power play, we've had 1 billion games, and it normally goes for 7, this 7th over. It goes, if they're going well, it goes for 7 or maybe 8. And you're like, yeah, but it really should be 12.5 now, because they're not going to stop. They're none down, or they're 1 down, and they're going absolutely berserko. Models and traders can't cope with it, because the thing that they forget when they run their million simulations based on the X thousand games that we've had in the format is the most recent ones are way more important than the ones when they weren't ever trying to hit the 7th over. How many times 8 years ago were teams carrying on gunning in the 7th? They went, all right, okay, here comes the off spinner, it's singles time. Now, if they're none or 1 down and they've been smoking it, they go harder, if anything. They're like, oh, balls, there's fielders out there now, we'll have to hit it over their heads. Not we'll try and hit it to them and run the singles. Cricket's changing, and you've got to be up on top of that.
That 7th over, you don't get as much of, we'll just bowl any donkey as you used to. Do you remember it used to be, I used to call it the Darren Sammy over, where he was just like, I'm going to get away with this one, right? Like, I'm going to get away with this over, whereas it just doesn't happen. So teams have changed a lot. We've talked quite a lot about India, but it feels like you have some views on England. I'm going to go on a bit of a one, and then you just come on the back of this. So, sure. Bazball comes from Brendan McCullum taking over the New Zealand side and doing a horrendous job. And then essentially, when them getting smashed in South Africa, he's like, let's just play cricket the way we want to. Let's play it using our best skills, back ourselves, and everything else, right? And that's where the sort of whole Neil Wagner thing happens. That's where you get, Luke Ronke and Brendan McCullum going nuts occasionally. Everyone plays their own game. They play to the best of their ability. BJ Watling goes from a failed opener to a quality number 6, and all these things work together. England see this, especially in the white ball cricket, and they go, okay, well, we want to play a version of this. So Owen Morgan picks it up, and from 2015 to 2019, they play their version of Bazball, right? Before we even had the term. Then McCullum eventually becomes coach. And he says, well, you can take that template that's working for you there, which is all your players who are really well suited to this thing. We're going to take that to test cricket, because you're actually really good at white ball cricket, but you're terrible at red ball cricket. So let's use your strengths and go over there. Yeah. Now he's come back to the white ball team. And I'm not even talking about, you can also mention KKR in the middle of all this, by the way. But you come back to all this, it's like we're on like the 4th or 5th iteration of the original McCullum thing. And yet, when I watched them in this series, I saw them trying to slog horrendously. I saw them bowling bounces a lot and a couple of funky fields. It's the same idea over and over and over again. When you really boil it down, like if you want to go back, Neil Wagner, Liam Plunkett, Ollie Robertson bowling bounces in Lords, right? Through to Cass and Overton doing the same thing now. It's basically one idea that he just keeps pushing in all these different directions routinely. And now, in this format, watching them play against India, it just looks so outdated.
Well, yeah, nail on the head. It's dumb, right? So England were about the same level of skill as Australia in the Ashes that was drawn 2-2 over here. And the reason they didn't win that series, a lot of English people argue the weather. The reason they didn't win that series is because they were stupid, right? Fundamentally, they did some stupid things. Undeniably stupid. Declaring in the first innings, for example, Edgbaston, was it? Absolutely mental. Handed a test match away. carrying on trying to whack in the 1 hour of a test match where it's hooping round corners, right? England are dumb. England are definitely dumb. And to watch the same thing happening over and over again, and the results steadily getting worse from a not particularly high level, and it's the fact that they can get away with it, Jarrod. They just keep saying, that's the way we play. And it's like, well, stop playing like that then. You're getting mullered all the time. So do something a bit different. And yesterday, we all kind of knew, I mean, you made some decent cash on it. We all kind of knew England were going to collapse chasing 250. But when you are 40 for none or whatever the first few overs when they were, what was it, 20 for none off 8 balls or something. You're like, okay, like this is going quite well. First over's gone for 16. There's just no thinking. And they actually did have a little bit of time. You can get the over of 20, but there's no longer any thought. And so what they're doing is they're going, McCullum was a brilliant player and he was something of a pioneer when he played. And he got his team, New Zealand, playing above themselves, and they had a great plan in the World Cup. He forgot to look at the ball in the final and all the rest of it. But great. But England, the reason why they won that World Cup is they planned loads for it, and they were the most aggressive team, right? Morning, noon and night at the time. They were the most aggressive team, and they packed their team full of people who were really aggressive. Other teams watched that. Like we just said about opening. Salt and Duckett sounds good 5 years ago, the way they play. 150 strike rate, great. What about when you play somebody on a road who's scoring at 250? Then what do you do? Because do you turn it over to Butler and Bethel and Brooke and go, okay, guys, sorry, we fell a bit behind the 250. Now you've got to go at 350. And they come in and go, all right, slog sweep then. Oh, dear, there's 2 men there and he's bowling on my stumps. Or we're dead. Or let's reverse every ball no matter what happens this over. Like, just thick, just dumb. And that's what it boils down to. And as an England supporter, it isn't justifiable to have these people in charge on massive salaries who are allowed to come out and say every time, the results don't really matter to us. We're just happy playing this brand of cricket. England fans don't find it fun when they lose by 150 runs in a T20. That's not fun to watch. Getting absolutely carted and then getting bowled out for nothing. Where's the fun?
You know this. You alluded to it before, but I put a bet on England under 200 runs in that innings.
Where was you under 100?
And I won it by 103 runs, which is, of all the bets I've ever won, the only one I might have been better on was when I put a big bet on South Africa when they made 160 in that test match, because I thought they'd get a couple of early wickets against Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka were bowled out for 45 or whatever it was. But I just knew what was coming next, because go back to the previous game, right? I don't want to focus too much on this game because they were chasing 240 odd, and it can mess with your brain and everything. I still think they played it badly. Don't get me wrong. I'm not pro them for this game. But the game before that, do you remember when they were winning that game, when Harry Brook had taken down Harshit Rana, right? Slaughtered him. He went from being, oh no, they're going to win with a super sub, to, oh great, the super sub's getting hit for 4s and 6s everywhere here, right?
Yeah.
The next over, there's a single, I think, then he hits a 4 from Varun Chakravarti, and I was like, that's it. I had a bet on India at that stage that was doing quite well for me, and I went, I'm out, because this is over here. They've got this game. He's just going to chip the rest of the over out. That's the end of Varun Chakravarti. And with Harry Brook in this kind of form, they'll be fine. Do you remember what he tried to do?
50 scoop.
He tried to scoop a slow bowler over short fine leg.
Yeah. 53 off 34 with a set man on 50 and loads and loads of wickets in hand of people that can bat.
And so you're not going to be shocked to know, after taking my bet off, Rob, I went straight back in after that. And I was like, they are going to lose this game. And so I ended up making pretty much almost exactly the same amount of money as I would have before. But it was just like, what are you doing? Like, you watch Abhishek Sharma. You remember, I think Abhishek Sharma's most interesting innings might have been in that same game. I think it was the 3rd or the 4th game when India lost their top order. And he started doing something I haven't seen him do very much before. He started hitting the ball really hard along the ground.
Yeah.
Right? And he just thought to himself, okay, if I get caught trying to hit a 6 over cover here, we're in a bad situation. But if I could take a bunch of 4s along the ground, we'll put pressure back on England and we can get ourselves back into the game.
Right.
England
And
never seemed to take that option. And they actually had a moment in the fourth game when I thought, oh, wait a minute, they're evolving. Livingston and Brook were knocking the ball around and looking for twos. One time in five games did I ever think, oh, England's playing some smart cricket here. The rest of the time, I'm like, oh my God.
it's relentless, and that's it. So the other teams, whilst on paper you read the names out and you're like, oh, that's a good batting lineup England have got, and they bat all the way to 10 again. Adil Rashid, interesting that how much batting he's had to do, and how Overton the other day was turning down singles to muck up the end of that. That was the fourth one, wasn't it? That was absurd. So England have lost the ability to think. So when they're being outplayed, they are always outthought, and that is a recipe for disaster. So they need to get somebody in the camp who has a brain and who is able to adapt to situations. Because, like, if Abhishek is showing you the way, one of the most one-dimensional cricketers of the last 18 months, and they were still saying it yesterday, oh, he's only got one gear and all that. Well, if your second gear or your fourth gear is 150 strike rate hitting fours, that's our top gear, England's top gear, right, is scoring at 150. So England are being consistently outthought, but because they've got big muscles and tattoos and strut around the place, there's nobody telling them that they're being outthought all the time. They go, oh, unlucky again, lads. We got beat again. How long does it have to go on for? How long do England have to be shit before anything changes? Because when somebody decides that actually losing all the time isn't great, and maybe people will stop going to watch every single game if England are getting smoked all the time, what happens then? Because none of these guys know how to play any other type of cricket, Jarrod. None of them. It's like, let's go wicket hunting. So I'm not going to say again, like, we've ruined Jofra Archer. Look at him again. Let's go wicket hunting. Let's bounce these guys. Oh shit, they're smashing them all for six over square leg over and over again. Should we try something else? No. Stick to it. It's fine. Like, we're big, strong England. We just look like big, dumb England now, and it must change, but it probably won't.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find it frustrating. And like the bouncers thing actually worked quite well in this series, right? Like there were times where India got themselves in a lot of knots. Sanju Samson, Tilak Varma actually ended up with a pretty good series, but he had a lot of moments that could have gone in a different way. They hit Shivam Dubé on the head. Like, I get it, but is that it? Like, I've seen that before. Like, what's their second gear and what's the third? If there doesn't seem to be anything else. And it took them about 8 overs to work out, why don't we just try a Yorker? Why don't we just
so they didn't bowl any? They didn't bowl any in the power play. When
I reckon Cast was Cast the 9th over before we saw a Yorker.
So we didn't see any in the power play when every over was going for 15. So they thought the plan was, let's stick to it. It's going to bear fruit eventually. So hang on, lads. Like, they're already like 1.2 to win the match, and you haven't tried anything else yet. You're just going down with the ship whilst the band is still playing, and everyone's like, you're all playing the right notes, right? But the ship, we're up to our necks in water. Never mind, keep playing, it's fine. Everyone loves the music. Like, stop it, England. Actually, Jarrod, India's batting didn't do all that in this series. It sounds absurd to say it, but look at the averages. Averages is a bad thing to look at, but look at the numbers from this series.
No, I think that's other than Abhishek,
nobody really got that many. Like, Tilak got a 70 odd, and then he got 60 across his 4 innings. Hardik got 50 in one of them. That was really good. He did nothing in the rest. Nobody really scored a run other than that for India in this series. Nobody really scored a run for India other than that. But England was so crap that they didn't have much to beat. I think India underperformed with the bat in this series. I just think they had competent spinners, and England had no answer to it. And they played... I wouldn't say India are the smartest team in the world, but they played reasonably smart cricket, and they played the conditions, and England were just, thick.
Yeah, thick. Which is funny because that's what the women's team has been accused of, but just in a completely different way. Let's have a break here. Actually, no, we've got a couple of super chats. Let's get to the super chats quickly. Kaushal says, Jaiswal or Abhishek in T20s?
Both.
The one thing I like about, I think Jaiswal will work it out, but at the moment he's slogging early on, and I think he'll work out eventually how to just score quickly, naturally, without having to slog.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that could hit fours for 15 minutes before he has to hit it in the air, and he'd still score at 170. He's that good.
Bellasub says, now feels like a golf for T20 talent between India and England. Nobody other than Archer or Butler makes the Indian team with Bumrah, Jaiswal, etc. back. Yeah, I'm not going to get on it, but England's use of Butler is quite interesting, and their use of Tucker is quite interesting. Being they're the only two players who can play spin, and they come in, they both bat so early that there's a chance they might actually not be around by the time the spin comes on. But there's definitely a bit of a golf there as well. I think that's fair. Let's have a break, and then we will come back and we'll talk about the 100 and which franchise it was that Rob Barron managed to buy for himself.
Come to cricket8.com for the best scorecards with visual representation of who is winning at any moment, plus live footage from some matches as well. You can also see what the market is thinking. There is simply no place to follow this sport live like cricket8.com.
All right. I want to do something with 100, which, you and I have done a little bit on before, but I'm just trying to get all the different prices up here and to go through them. But essentially, I'm wondering higher or lower is what I'm looking for at the moment. So the Mumbai Indians, the Ambani Reliance family, whatever you want to call them, they bought 49% of the Oval Invincibles. And I believe they need to pay 123 million. Oh, sorry, it's worth 123 million. So they're paying just over 60 million for a 49% stake. The Oval Ground, as far as I'm aware, Rob, is owned by Prince Charles, King Charles, one of the Charleses.
Sure.
Maybe the Cocker Spaniel. I'm not sure. That means you're only buying the franchise. You don't actually get full access to the ground, would be my guess. So you can't monetize it for the rest of the year and in the same way. But that for London, I think that's a pretty good payment for what is, probably London's best cricket ground in many ways. Is that overs or unders?
In what respect is it overs or unders? You mean have they overpaid or underpaid?
Correct.
So the number now that's just been paid is much, much higher than that. So you'd have to say slightly unders. The number that got paid this week or reported this week is much higher than what you said. So
I'm with you. I think they did well.
You say it's value. Fair enough.
I think that's the best value for money deal compared to everything else. And the numbers there might be other deals like and other things. None of these are completely solid at the moment or anything. But we're just going on the numbers that have been reported. I think to buy that for the Oval makes sense. Having said that, I'm a bit concerned about the fact of how you get full access to the Oval. And also, I know these are little things, but let's say you do get access to the Oval. There isn't actually that much room around that ground. Like
Very
with
true.
Lords, there's quite a lot you could do. You've got the underground stuff which Lords has never touched before, and you've got the nursery ground. There's quite a few things you could do at Lords, whereas the Oval is pretty much the Oval.
Yeah.
Like they've stretched it about as far as they can. I think the only thing that they own as well, which it might be Surrey that owns this and not actually the ground itself, but they also own the pub across the road. The one that's been closed on the corner for years. No, the one that's been closed around the back of the actual Oval itself.
Okay, yeah.
You know the one I'm talking about that you can see, and I don't think it's been open for about 20 years, has it? Like
Well,
it's been
what the
closed
hell
for
are
a
they
long time.
doing if they own a pub and have it shut? I mean that just shows how stupid England are.
Okay, so that's the Oval Invincibles. Is that what they call? I should know this.
Yeah.
I've been to one of their games. The London Spirit, which is the Lords team, they have been valued at 295 million. So basically halve this if you want to, or work out what 49% is if you want to work out how much it is. This has been bought by, basically from what I can understand, it came down to Lucknow Super Giants and the Major League Cricket owners. So Google owners and all those sorts of people.
So it was the maths geeks against the cricket people is kind of what it ended up.
Yeah,
the math people that work for Google and Adobe and all those type of characters.
Yeah,
Clever people. Right?
What was it? It was Google, Microsoft, Adobe, and there was a couple of other companies, wasn't there as well? Like as in a couple of other people who support Silicon Valley companies.
See, this is the bit I don't get, right? Because I am going to throw something out there that I assume is fact, that those people that were in that room negotiating, the heads of Google and Adobe and Microsoft, are cleverer than me, right?
No.
I'm
No one's cleverer than you.
I'm going to assume they're cleverer than me, and they think that London Spirit are a good buy at £300 million of a
That was
tournament
going to be my next question.
that nobody likes. So now what?
I've talked to some of these owners. I don't know if I talked to this group. I would have to go through. I might have talked to someone from in this group looking at, but I'm not sure. And I kept saying to them, what you are betting on is that the market is worth a lot, knowing that the people who run this tournament have always run cricket poorly and have never made a lot of money out of cricket before. So either you're betting on the market so strong and that you'll be able to take it over and then do it the correct way, or you're putting a lot of money into an organization. The only reason the 100 exists, Rob, is because of how bad English cricket has always been run. Yeah. Like it does not need to exist. It only exists through mismanagement. So you're now trusting the group who mismanaged it to begin with to make it come good. Then let's go back to our previous thing. Lords, you don't own 49% of Lords. You own 49% of the London Spirit. You are, in that case, going up against a $1 billion organization in Lords. Isn't it quite hard to actually buy more of that compared to buying it from some of the other counties who don't have any money? So you've only got the team, but you do have access to Lords. I think for me, this is the one franchise I would have skipped.
Yeah. I mean, I still can't get over the fact that, as you say, the 100 just sort of got dreamt up because England reckon they invented T20 cricket and kind of had the foot in the door first as far as a domestic tournament that was any good. And then they thought, well, actually, everyone else has done better than us with that, so we'll just have to invent something else. And it seems that there was no thought whatsoever to what they were going to invent. It was just a different thing. Like, I'm right in saying that nobody likes it, and it's
not that nobody likes it. It's that in a country where cricket is the second biggest sport and fighting for that title quite a lot, right? It's a sport, it's a format of the game or a league, however you want to say it, where where a huge chunk of cricket fans don't like it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that everyone doesn't like it. There's a small portion that like it, but if you're already chopping your market up at the moment, so you're hoping eventually that other market will come to the 100. I'm not saying they won't, Rob, but that's what you're putting your money on already. Right? You have to know a lot about English cricket. And I can promise you from the conversations I had with these people, they did not know a lot about English cricket. Some of these they were impulse buys. Now, if you're a billionaire, I suppose 150 million is an impulse buy. And maybe we're overthinking it because you're worth about 128 million, right? But I'm obviously only worth, seven Snickers bars that I found under the sofa, right? Like, and I don't even eat chocolate. So, like, it is a different world that these people inhabit, but it's not an insubstantial amount of money, right? If you're putting an investment like this in, you're expecting your 49% to be worth over $1 billion fairly shortly, I would have thought.
I think it must be something to do with having control or a say in what the best cricketers in the world do across multiple franchises. And building brands and all that sort of stuff, like what Mumbai are doing now with having, Mumbai Indians X, Y, Z, and all the rest of it across the world. They can say to players, and they'll have players that aren't quite good enough to play in the IPL. They're like stable 2, and the guys in stable 2 are like, well, you're going to play in the South African one, and you're going to play and you stable 3 guys, you're going to play in the IL20, and you lot are going to go and play in this one. And they build up like a mega brand that way. I get it, right? It kind of works. But does it work what happens if the 100 does die in 2 years? What happens if the 100's not a thing? Is that just 150 million gone? Or do they still own a stake in something? Or do they own a bit of Surrey? Or like what happens to it? I don't understand it.
I feel that this is a buy of a bunch of guys who are ready to buy an IPL team and haven't been able to buy an IPL team. That's what this feels like to me. Because the Mumbai Indians model makes a lot more sense, right? The MI model, we might say it's limited. How much money can you really make off the Cape Town franchise, right? And maybe the New York one, you'll make a lot of money. The Dubai one, but they're buying enough things that it makes sense to us from you can keep your brand going all year. I don't even think they've maximized that. I think if it would take me about 5 minutes in a content meeting with any of these franchises to be like, this won't cost you a lot of money, and you can actually get a whole more, what you have here is a lot better than even what you believe. This one feels to me like a couple of owners who missed out on an IPL team, and who I know I remember this from Andrew Miller interviewed. What is it? I forget what his name is, but the guy from Google. No, sorry, the guy from Microsoft, Satya Nadella. I'm almost 100% positive that when Andrew Miller interviewed him, he was obsessed with Lords. Right. So it doesn't surprise me that they've overpaid. But I do think, even though they're the London franchises, I think that Mumbai have done well with their buy, and I would say that the Silicon Valley have done a little bit worse with theirs. We both agree on that?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Great. Should we move down to our personal favorite franchise, the Lucknow Super Giants? Where else? What's the Super Giants in SA20? What's their franchise called?
I don't know.
Awesome. I'm glad we've done our work. But there is a Super Giants there, isn't there? Durban Super Giants? I've been watching that tournament for like weeks. You'd think I would have noticed.
I've watched it for the last 2 weeks, and I don't know what any of the teams are called.
Someone will put it in the comments, and I'll get it up in a minute. Durban. Yeah, I was right the first time, even though I
Durban
had no
Super
idea.
Giants, is it? Is that what they're called?
Yeah. So they have then bought the they have bought the Manchester side. I think this is quite interesting, and I was wondering what you thought about it from that point of view. I think Manchester is a very good side to buy, and I'd be more than happy with that, because I think there's a lot you can do in the future with sort of linking up that whole Old Trafford district.
Yeah.
Right. And you can and we already know that it's a huge, Manchester sport is quite a huge thing. So I'm just trying to have a look. I can't find the exact numbers here, but I thought that the number that was paid for this one seemed pretty fair to me. It's, what is it, 49%? I can't find it here. But yeah, I thought this one was okay. What was your thoughts?
Again, fine, because like you say, because of the area and the catchment area. Like, I live very close to Old Trafford. I'm 20 minutes away, and you do see people at the bus stops going to the double headers of the 100, and the women's 100 is a very good thing for women's cricket. We haven't talked about that, and the 100 is an excellent vehicle for women's cricket, and it's one of the best competitions in women's cricket as well, because they get all the players. There's a good window for it. It's actually in the summer, whereas the Blast, I just bought tickets to the Blast finals day, and it's September the bloody 18th or something. It's like basically at Christmas, which is a stupid time to have cricket in England. But Manchester has you've got Lancashire as your home base. It's a big cricketing area, and it's quite a good area for sport and transport links and all that stuff that is actually important. Because when you try and watch cricket in Southampton, whatever the Rose Bowl's called nowadays, you can't go out after, for example, because it takes you way too long to get into Southampton. Whereas Manchester has all that stuff on lock. You've got the tram outside the ground. You just jump on it and you're out on the lash, aren't you? Right? They do a lot of things right at Old Trafford. It's the thing that I want to see with Lucknow being Durban as well, and you have so De Kock played for both, didn't he? I want to see a bit more of that, so they have an actual identity, and you say, we are the team that plays this type of cricket. We have, our tactics are this. I think that's what I'd like to get to. So if you're a fan of whatever you want to call them, the Super Giants, so Lucknow is Durban and Lucknow, Mumbai is Mumbai Cape Town and Mumbai Indians and Mumbai whoever else, York, and you start seeing the same players more often. You actually have Rashid Khan turning out for all the Mumbai teams. I think that way you could have fans and branders. At the moment, it feels like a lot of rich people are kind of deciding that that's a good way to spend their money. That's what it feels like, rather than they're developing cricket or going. I'd like to see it so that they do have stables of people that this guy plays in the crap tournament, but he does really well, and he moves up to the. There's some terrible franchise cricket going on at the moment. I mean, we watch half of it. Some terrible cricket being played, and we're watching it. And we're like, why am I watching this guy bowl to this guy and no one's trying to score any runs or take any wickets? Like, why am I watching this cricket? What game? That was the dead rubber in the SA20 yesterday. where one of the teams just changes all 11, and then you flick over to Bangladesh.
They were 260, weren't they? Was it Pretoria? And then at the toss, they came into 160. I'm just like, whoa! Like,
And then they got absolutely murdered.
Yeah, which was even funnier. Okay, 55 million, we'll say, for Manchester. For me, that's a buy. Thoughts?
Yeah. Should we go halves?
I almost think. Well, we know people on the Lucknow inside. We'll let them know. I'll happily buy as long as they get rid of the temporary stand at Old Trafford where you get pissed on when you walk underneath it. If they do that, and I've already sent a message through to the ownership group, if you fix that stand, I'll never say anything bad about the Super Giants franchise ever again. Right? Like, I don't care how bad you play your cricket. I'm on board from then on in. So that's another one. Tom Brady has bought the Birmingham Phoenix. Kind of. Doesn't Chris Paul own the Rajasthan Royals as well? Do you remember? No, who's the weirdest one? Is it the Scottish actor? Is it Gerald Butler owned 1% of a 0.1%? Anyway, Birmingham Phoenix, $82 million winning bid. Is that the 49% or is that the full amount? Everyone's written out. Yeah, so $41 million for Birmingham Phoenix.
That's right.
Again, I like this. This is a buy for me. You've got a really engaged cricket community there. You've got a nice big space around Edgbaston. Birmingham, I love Birmingham as a city. I know other people don't, but I really do enjoy it as a city. You've got a lot of Asian cricket engagement as well in that area. Yeah. For me, that and Manchester, I think those prices are okay.
Again, when you've got Edgbaston and Birmingham and the Asian cricket fans, I mean, I've been to Edgbaston bloody millions of times, and it is always fun. It's almost always full as well, which is a big deal. That's one thing, to be fair, if you're investing in English cricket, English people go to anything, right? I've been to sellouts at the bloody badminton at the Olympics. It's a load of old nonsense. And it's just people go to stuff. That's what English people do. Like, we don't have anything to do, or we're stupid or something. We just go to stuff. If you sell tickets for sport, English people always go. It's always full. There's always people waiting to buy tickets. And Edgbaston, because you have the Asian contingent as well, and players like Moeen Ali, who does a hell of a lot for cricket in the Birmingham area, who they were building the team around, I guess, when they started it a couple of years ago. They've got players like Bethel and Mousley. It's that team, isn't it? Not many bowlers. Maybe they had Milne. Is Livingston there? Sounds about right. Like those sort of players, like lots of hitty, spinny type people that, whack it and bowl part-time off spin. Again, trying to get an identity and stuff. Cool. Birmingham is a good place. Loads going on. As you say, you can expand Edgbaston. There's loads of room around that. Like the environs or whatever the word is you've got some room there. And good
They've
cricketing
got that giant
culture.
car park next to it,
Yeah.
which I always find really funny because I'm just not sure you need a giant car park next to.
Well, you're not really allowed to park there on match days, are you? So,
well, I used to get press. I used to be able to park there with the press, and now the press have to park across the road, and we have to drive a long way away these days. So, as far as I'm concerned, the car park's dead to me, Rob. But yeah,
So
I think
put more
in Canada
cricket stuff
games, you used to be able to park in that car park, didn't you? So
Probably.
I think there's room on the other side as well, like because they've got like a bunch of sort of nets on one side and then another net area. There's a lot of area around that, and also if you think about it, like I don't know if Manchester would be similar, but I don't think it would be. I think there's probably more area that they could buy around there. Like there's some. Across the road, there's some room like this. You could make that into a real district because the one thing you would say about Edgbaston is it's not in the center of Birmingham, right? Like it's what, a 40-minute walk from the center of Birmingham.
Yeah.
And you're about half an hour walk / cab or whatever to get to anything fun after the game. It's not quite like Manchester or or the Oval or or Lords where you can, or Trent Bridge even, where you can pour out into different things and you can go in different places. So there is an element of that. It's a little bit further away, but I think there's like a Lidl or an Aldi or something across the road. Like you could maybe, there's room to do things around that ground to make it more of an entertainment district and area if into the future, if that's what you're looking at doing.
Yeah, so it's what cricket could learn a lot more from baseball. And there's lots of things cricket could learn from baseball, but the fan experience of being at a baseball, I've been to a couple, in New York, you go to the Mets, it's very different from the Yankees, but both of them have huge fan engagement. There's lots of stuff you can do in the ground, which England is getting better at, but it's not quite there yet. Australia are trying for Big Bash, certainly, to make it like family fun.
They're quite good, the Big Bash, yes. It depends on the different cities and different venues, but there's quite a few where it's a bit of it's like an entertainment day, and then there's a cricket game in the middle, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so,
and I think...
one thing baseball could learn from cricket, though, it's more fun when the ball bounces.
Yeah, I watched a great thing yesterday. I watched the... it was the 50 worst first pitches thrown. And that's a good thing. Why doesn't cricket do that? Have some idiot bowling, like some YouTuber or rapper or something, bowling the first ball. I
know that was talked about when the Big Bash started, and I'm not even sure it didn't happen. Do you remember that the Big Bash, when it first started, and you would be one of the few people in the world that would remember this, they used to put celebrities in cages, right? Yeah. Do you remember that? And then if
they should do that more in general.
Yeah. And if they caught the ball, their money went to charity or whatever.
Right.
And it was of course completely ridiculous on so many different levels. One was they were just sitting on their own, which was so weird. And if you didn't have a comedian, they didn't know what to say. Well, like, what does a soap actor say every time you come back to them? You enjoy the game? Yeah. Has anyone been hit near you yet? No, of course not, because I'm in a massive stadium and the ball could go anywhere. Okay, let's move on. Sorry. But we should have more celebrities in cages, according to Rob Barron. I think we can quote him on that one. Welsh Fire was secured by the Washington Freedom owners. This was the one that we thought the Hollywood guys were going to buy, and I know that they sniffed around it, but obviously didn't go anywhere. I actually emailed. Oh, this is such a weird story, but you know what's the Welsh football team that is owned? Wrexham.
Wrexham.
So the guy that runs that. Used to do the voices of... We used to have a thing on Cricket Info where we had our own show called the Chuck Fleetwood Smiths, and we used to do Russian cricket commentary on it, and he's the guy that used to do that. He's like this famous comedian writer. Anyway, I emailed him to say, if you're doing cricket, I'd love to chat to you about, why you're moving from Wrexham to cricket. Clearly they're not. Okay, so... The finals, it's now worth $67.5 million, which I don't know much about Wales, but that might make it the most expensive thing in Wales. Apology to every Welsh person watching this. That means they've got to pay
Wales
$33 million, right? Which is what they've got to pay for the 49% share. I ask you, would you pay for $33 million for the Welsh? What are they called? Fire Dragons? Whatever they're called.
Welsh Fire.
Fire Dragons.
So aren't Welsh Fire the ones that got slightly badly set up and lost every single game? Isn't that them?
Yep.
So for me, that's a consideration, and I don't think it is for people that buy these teams. They're just like, well, I want a team, so that's that. It's like, but the team stinks, so I don't know. It's like, because there's no relegation or anything in any of these things, and maybe one day they'll actually do that, have leagues where stuff matters.
You'll never have relegation in these leagues, because if you're buying into this league, you have to buy into it knowing no matter how bad you are, hello Sacramento Kings, you're always going to stay in the league.
See, that's the bit I don't like. So if you're just buying it for money reasons, I can't really comment because I'm not clever enough and I don't understand the maths of it. But if you're looking at the actual team, I have been to Wales.
And you follow cricket enough to know how big cricket is in Wales.
Yeah, there's plenty of Welsh cricket fans.
Okay,
I was at the game where Sean Tate bowled the fastest ball ever in Wales once. That's all I remember.
Can you say that Welsh cricket has half the upside of Manchester cricket?
No.
Do you know what I mean? That's what you're talking about with these prices, right? Like, this to me is like, if I got the Welsh team for like 15 or 20 million, I'd be thinking to myself, well, I've still got a chunk of the league, and who knows what will happen in the future of Wales cricket. Every time I've ever been, we used to do this thing where we would go around the streets and we would ask people, what they thought of the test match coming up. The Welsh ones were always the best because it was just Welsh people looking at us confused why we weren't talking about rugby. Right? They didn't know they had a cricket ground, some of them. Like, it was so far from their minds. And it was very hard to find anyone who was a cricket fan there. There are some hardcore Welsh cricket fans, and I know them, and good luck to them. but they haven't produced cricketers for a very long
Right.
time. Who's their best?
Do you think
Imad
I was
Wasim is the
just
best
about to
Welsh
ask-
cricketer of
I
the
was
last
just
20
about
years.
to ask you that. Like when they had Simon Jones, and we all had to remember to call it the England and Wales cricket team because that's what it is. Don't
Robert
forget.
Croft?
Yeah.
Put
It's
some
the
respect on his name.
It's the England and Wales cricket team, right? But they haven't since Simon Jones. Really, somebody comment if I'm wrong. There hasn't really been a proper Welshman bossing it for England. I can't think of any, and that might be the Welsh want to get behind those sportsmen, right? Look at the rugby team, and the football team when they had massive names. When Gareth Bale was just winning games by himself. Maybe that's what Welsh cricket needs, is somebody else that comes out and plays for England and starts being really good again, or at least somebody who is cutting it up on the circuit and bashing it everywhere or taking poles or something.
And it is worth saying that they've had England captains before, right? Like it's not that there's never been any cricket from there or anything else, but they've also got, and this, I don't think this matters with the 100 team, but there is a small amount of Welsh cricketers, Welsh people within Welsh cricket who push towards Wales being an independent side like Scotland is.
Yeah,
So
I don't see how that
not-
works right now.
Well, it doesn't. But my point is, they're not always all pushing not in the right direction. They can push in any direction they want, but they're not always pushing in the same direction, are they? It's not as if everyone's on fighting for it. Who would be the last? I know we made a joke about Imad Wasim, but Anuran Donald could play some cricket. He
Yeah,
was a decent player. No, do you not remember him? Was he not good?
yeah, I remember the name. I don't remember how good he was. There's not much. The cupboard's bare, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, I can't
Maybe,
remember.
so if whoever's buying Welsh Fire wants to get some Welsh engagement, then they've got to put a bit of money into Welsh cricket and try and find some new people that are good at cricket in Wales, because that's how that, what was it, 40 million could be worth something if you start getting Wales interested again because you find some Welsh talent. But again, what is the motivation of the people buying it? I don't think it's to blood future Welsh superstars. I don't think that's on the top of their agenda.
You don't think they're coming in just to have more? I can't even remember his name, and I just said it.
Anuran
Donalds. You don't think that that's about to happen?
I do not.
Someone's saying Phil Salt in the. I think he was born in Wales, but I don't think he was brought up in Wales. I think he was brought up in Sussex, wasn't he? So I mean, him and Imad Wasim still count. If you want to count them, you can count them. My memory, there is some of those county grounds where you go to, and like they don't have a lot of stars, and so they start naming stuff after their overseas players. So obviously Shane Warne in Hampshire is a famous one.
Yeah.
You've got, I'm pretty sure in Glamorgan, they have some stuff up on the walls of Viv Richards, who's it's not even his most famous county team, is it? It's the county team he went to when he was finished. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So I always remember that of just being like, because the first time I walked past it, I went, oh yeah, Viv Richards did play here. That's why you have an entire mural dedicated to a man who was probably 42 when you trotted him out on the field. We're probably missing another team, but overall, I think the valuations, I think someone put this in the comments before, the valuations are like, no one knows what these teams are worth, right?
No.
As in, then, was it Lalit Modi who went nuts on Twitter with some of the information? It's like, they're made up numbers. Most valuations of startups are made up numbers, like early on businesses. When someone asks me how much my business is worth, it's always 7.4 million, right? That's my basic number. It never changes. But there is an element of this all being made up, but also these people aren't buying these franchises or into this league because they think it is currently a great league. They're doing it because of the market and because of the potential for growth and where we go from here. But it's hard to see. I think the Wales and the Lords one for me just feel a little bit iffy, where I don't see it. Whereas with some of the other ones, I do see it. And I also like the idea of just buying the entire county sets up, so you do get the ground and everything else. Having said that, as we all know, the Rose Bowl is literally in the arse end of nowhere.
It really is,
and is the worst possible place to own a cricket ground. But at least you have the golf course, and you can turn that into again an entertainment district.
Got the hotel there now, haven't you?
Yeah, it's not. I don't want to slag off a Cricket Grounds hotel, but having spent some time in the hotel area, and I know we've got, so you know the press box is in the hotel.
Yeah.
And
You can
also,
technically watch a game from bed, can't you? If you get the right room. Yeah.
which is awesome.
I'm all for that.
I've commentated from some of those rooms.
Yeah.
I wasn't wowed. Like, if there wasn't cricket on, I'm not sure why you would ever stay in that hotel, right?
See, that's the question, isn't it? Like, has anyone ever stayed there when there isn't a cricket game on? Because what are you looking at? Just empty
Grass?
stadium. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Isn't there also, there's an Ian Botham restaurant there as well, isn't there? It's an Ian Botham restaurant and like a Shane Warne room at that ground. Hampshire is crazy. Surely you just name something after the Tremlets, right? And just, I don't know, maybe at the very least, what, the lift or the biggest grandstand should be named after the Tremlets, like the tallest grandstand there.
Dimitri Mascarenhas. He should get something.
What would it be? The Dimmy Bar, the Dimmy Gates. Thank you very much, Rob Barron. We've given so much today, and with so little. I'm sick as a dog, so I can barely even listen to you or understand you. But that's not that much different to normal. I like your European cricket hat. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you to everyone in the comments. I saw so many of you in there, Sag and Simple Mass and VAR and Harry and everyone else. Thank you for keeping us sane, or in Rob's case, maybe stopping us from being sane. And we'll be back later this week. I think we might be doing one on the weekend with Mash and Mega as well. But there'll be more Cricket 8. And then hopefully by the IPL, there'll be a lot more Cricket 8. Ooh, teaser. Ooh.
Remember to support us by subscribing and sharing, but also signing up at cricket8.com, where live scorecards cover 8,000 matches a year with advanced visual details that tell you who is actually in front in the game.